The seventh cranial nerve is the facial nerve. It is another cranial nerve that has both sensory and motor functions, so we would say that it is a mixed nerve. Its sensory functions convey the sense of taste from taste receptors on the tongue and in the mouth to the brain where they are interpreted. The facial nerve has somatic as well as autonomic motor functions. Its somatic motor functions include control of skeletal muscles involved in facial expressions, while its autonomic motor functions control the lacrimal glands and the salivary glands. The lacrimal glands are located in the eyelids and they produce tears, while the salivary glands are located within various parts of the oral cavity and they produce saliva. So as mentioned in the previous slide, the somatic motor division of the facial nerve controls skeletal muscles that are involved in facial expressions. One muscle to note here is the zygomaticus muscle, which functions in smiling. Bell's palsy is a condition, which is usually temporary, that affects the facial nerve. It is caused by trauma to the facial nerve or by an infection, and it causes the facial nerve to not communicate properly with the muscles that it controls, resulting in temporary paralysis. In this image, the man is attempting to smile, and we see that the left side of his face is responding, but the right side is not, because he is experiencing Bell's palsy. The eighth cranial nerve is called the vestibulocochlear nerve, and this nerve is mostly sensory with its functions. It conveys sensory signals from two inner ear structures to the brain. The first of these inner ear structures is called the vestibule, which is a large chamber that functions in balance and equilibrium. The second is a snail-like structure that is called the cochlea, and it functions in the sense of hearing. The ninth cranial nerve is called the glossopharyngeal nerve. This nerve is also a mixed nerve because it has both sensory and motor functions. Its sensory capabilities include sensing taste, temperature, and touch from the tongue and the pharynx. It also has functions to sense blood pressure in the common carotid arteries, which are major arteries that supply blood to the head and to the brain. So in this regard, it acts as a pressure sensor, or what we call a baroreceptor. Its motor capacities include controlling the skeletal muscles of the pharynx during swallowing. Cranial nerve number 10 is called the vagus nerve. It is an unusual cranial nerve in that it is the only cranial nerve that has functions beyond the head and the neck. It is a mixed nerve, and its sensory fibers carry information from many of the visceral organs, like those belonging to the respiratory, digestive, and urinary systems, while its motor fibers control heart rate, breathing muscles, so it can control breathing rates and depths, and controls the smooth muscle of the digestive system, which is going to regulate digestive system motility. The 11th cranial nerve is called the accessory nerve, or it is also referred to as the spinal accessory nerve. It is another unusual cranial nerve in that it does not emerge from the brain. Instead, it has fibers that are located on cervical 1 through cervical 5 regions of the spinal cord. These fibers form a common bundle, which then loops through the skull and back out to muscles of the neck. It functions primarily as a motor nerve, controlling muscles that move the head, the neck, and the shoulders. For example, the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the trapezius muscle. The 12th and final cranial nerve is a nerve called the hypoglossal nerve. This nerve functions primarily as a motor nerve, controlling skeletal muscles that move the tongue during speaking, chewing, or swallowing. So if you're having trouble remembering the names of all 12 cranial nerves, the following saying contains the first letter of every nerve. And that saying is, "Oh, once one takes the anatomy final, very good vacations are heavenly." Likewise, if you're having trouble remembering the functions of the cranial nerves, the following saying contains the first letter of the function. So S means that the nerve is primarily sensory, M for a motor nerve, and B stands for the mixed nerves that are both sensory and motor in their functions. And that saying is, "Some say money matters, but my brother says big brains matter more."